I am here today to give you, the Muslim and non-Muslim, the correct methodology when going about understanding other belief systems in light of Islam. Islam is a complete religion, a fully laden ideology in no need of being shaped or understood through the framework of foreign beliefs such as secularism, liberalism, etc. The reason why should be obvious. Islam is from Allah, the all-knowing, the fair, and the truthful. These are the names and attributes of Allah, whereas foreign ideologies are from fallible, fumbling men. If you have faith, then this alone should cause you to put total trust in all Islamic rulings, without question due to a previous presentation proving the truth of Islam supernaturally, even if you do not know the consequential wisdom behind the Islamic rulings. Not every ruling we can see the consequential benefit of doing because it might not have one. It might be purely spiritually beneficial, such as wiping water over the cuff. When I say consequential wisdom, I am referring to the empirical outcome and consequence of a thing, a ruling. So a thing can either be consequentially good or bad, or both, but usually one outweighs the other. For example, consequentially, homosexuality is bad due to one of the consequences, among many of homosexuality, being a rampant increase in STDs, disproportionately more than heterosexuals despite their demographic being a drop in the ocean compared to the heterosexual demographic. This is shown by many studies, and you can now see the consequential wisdom in Islam outlawing homosexuality since it harms the wider community. So throughout this presentation, I will supplement our faith-based trust in Allah's rulings with evidences of the rulings being consequentially good and logically sound. This is for those lacking in faith or merely seeking a boost in faith. As for those in whose hearts is a disease, consider the fact of you being here watching this as a chance, or a final chance, from Allah to redeem your corrupted heart that presumes evil or immorality in Islam, a heart that seeks to falsify due to unsound faith and sincerity. This isn't a personal criticism of you. This is a diagnosis from the Quran that I am relaying, and I attempt to be your cure with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now let's continue. Fairness is at the center of Islam, regardless of what our enemies will claim. Fairness is doing what is right. Who better to inform us people about what is right than He who created all people and is absolutely fair, Allah? Or is it that it is wisdom to believe that the ignorant creation knows best how to govern? Or this is but plain error. Allah has monopoly over fairness. And know that fairness is not identical to equality. If it were, then why are there universal instances where treating people unequally is considered fair? Like a disabled person with a wheelchair, while the able don't get that luxury, or people with glasses and those without, or women and children first in disaster situations since men are less vulnerable and more likely to survive than the vulnerable, or male car insurance being disproportionately more than women's due to men being more reckless drivers and getting more accidents. There are countless examples of universal fair inequalities. So any ideology that suggests egalitarianism, absolute equality, is out of touch with reality and human experience, and as a result is falsified. Therefore, feminism is falsified because feminism asserts that men and women should be treated equally in all things, despite men and women desiring different things and being different biologically and psychologically. Different testosterone and estrogen levels results in different mindsets and abilities. Different things require different treatment, as shown with all the examples above. So who gets to decide which inequalities are fair? We say Allah, they say human subjective socio-relativism, which changes and rotates more times than their sexual partners. So their right and wrong, morality, is not objective but subjective, derived through opinions, and it is therefore conceivable for any bad thing today to become good, just as homosexuality and promiscuity were bad, but have become good to them. It is inconsistent and unreliable, so we reject their socio-relativism. In Islam, the testimony of men and women is another example. They are unequal but fair. The testimony of one man is equivalent to two women in some situations. Awareness of the fairness comes when you realize the difference in dispositions that men and women are set at. Sociological studies show that in pressured situations, women are more prone to neuroticism than men in both adolescence and adulthood. Neuroticism is a disposition where the person who has it suffers from excessive anxiety, stress, and self-doubt. Giving testimony is a high-pressure situation since many people may be depending on you. And self-doubt is a quality that jeopardizes the reliability of testimony. So how then can the testimony be trustworthy when it has been compromised? And if a woman suffers more from this, then her testimony may be in more jeopardy. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, mitigates this by reducing the pressure of the situation for a woman to prevent her from erring by providing an assistive testimony in the form of another woman to corroborate the first testimony, thus reducing the pressure and the jeopardy to the testimony. The rights for every human are what I call the dignity of the son of Adam, referring to rights for both men and women. They are dispensed by Allah. Allah mercifully bestowed on us the Islamic Sharia law, which protects each person's faith, wealth, lineage, honor, and intellect, thereby protecting the community from harm. And there are 6 main harms that obliterate a community: kufr, drugs, alcohol, gambling, interest, and promiscuity. Every social problem that civilizations face boil down to one of those. And, funnily enough, each one is loved by the societies of disbelievers. A quick example of the evil of just one. Promiscuity is immodesty, lack of clothing, which entices men who are more visually stimulated than women and leads to advances in flirtation, which both sexes enjoy. This leads to fornication like donkeys, which encourages commitmentless sex, aka casual sex, and trains indiscipline. It is sociologically proven that more sexual partners reduces one's ability to pair bonds successfully and make stable families in society, thus increasing the likelihood of having no family, low birth rates, or unstable families due to lack of intended commitment, which can entail single parenting, which leads to delinquent children and poor-performing children, emotionally, academically, and professionally, alongside bastard children. Promiscuity also increases the likelihood of STDs, which is on the rise already as predicted by Rasulullah. All these vices from little old casual sex, as the kuffar see it. There is nothing casual about it, rather catastrophic. Now you see how the hijab and modesty and punishing promiscuity severely are such wisdoms alongside being commands, and how lowering the gaze is so important. How easy it is for things to slippery slope. How knowledgeable is our Lord, who trains us to avoid these evils. Coming back to the topic of the dignity of the son of Adam, since the Sharia has the all-important job of protecting the community on an individual level, those wrongdoers who usurp others' dignity, aka rights, or the rights of Allah, must be punished. Who are the wrongdoers? They are defined by the one who created humankind, and we trust in His judgment, wisdom, justice, mercy, knowledge, and love to define them in the Quran. So listen not to those kuffar who trivialize the wrongdoings of the wrongdoer due to their deep misguidance. For example, they may trivialize the evil of promiscuity despite the consequential evils I explained earlier, or apostasy when we know there is no excuse for it given the plethora of evidences and parables Allah has put forward for us. But the disbelievers will come with their false parables, as the Quran accurately identifies. Being Muslim is what grants a person their Islamic rights in an Islamic country. Consider it like citizenship. If you resign your Islam, then you are no longer bound legally to give Muslims their rights, such as not shedding their blood, and as such, you are a threat to the community that needs dealing with. It would be like a British citizen professing, "I declare that I no longer adhere to any British laws and am not under them." This is treason since it means you don't accept speed limits, others' rights and freedoms as stipulated by Britain, etc., and you can be forcibly detained or deported. Hence execution after 3 days of having Islam explained to you and you not repenting, being justified in Islam, or relocation to the kuffar being justified. You would be a threat to the Muslims. If kuffar have a problem with punishing people for non-violent offenses like apostasy, then why is it punishable to deny the Holocaust, or to refuse to refer to someone as their preferred pronouns, or to be anti-Semitic, or to deny someone's preferred gender, or hate speech in general? These are all punishable non-violent offenses that they endorse, so they're inconsistent to criticize R1. If the kuffar have a problem with the death penalty, then why is it still legal in some U.S. states? Why are the American and British governments, pretty much all governments, legally justified to assassinate those that they consider threats from people who are in countries that are not even their own? In the eyes of the Islamic critics, that should be an even greater quote-unquote transgression than Muslims executing those apostated in their own lands. So the critics of Islamic apostasy laws are inconsistent, and their beliefs are out of touch with their own country's ideology, since their country allows executions. The final thing to say on the matter of apostasy is that believing the Islamic theology and observing the Islamic practices is tied to your rights as a citizen, and apostatizing forfeits not just the theology and practices, but also your rights. They're inseparable, like the disbelievers and their alcohol. So to conclude, we consider to be wrongdoing, whatever Allah tells us is wrongdoing. Even if I had none of these consequential justifications for apostasy and all other rulings, we would still believe them. To continue, we have our dignity as the sons of Adam. So we don't need foreign belief systems to tell us what rights humans have. Let's give some examples of other systems of rights. The construction of rights that secularism proposes is human rights as a model to determine right and wrong. Human rights is a general name for a specific concept. It would be like people referring to dodgeball, which is a specific sport, as the sport, as if it is the only sport. It is deceptive to do so, but the listeners should be knowledgeable enough to realize that it is nothing but a social construct construed by man. Secularism presents itself as having monopoly over rights humans should have, but we will demonstrate that the name is the only superficially compelling thing about it and not its principles. And only Allah has monopoly of the dignity of the sons of Adam. Human rights is built upon equality, preserving human life and freedom. They claim to guarantee these things. So why do their governments and courts contradict equality when disproportionately giving custody to mothers over fathers? By the way, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, consequentially, since a motherly presence for a child is more important than a father's, but it just shows that human rights is out of touch with human needs. Why do they contradict equality by making maternity leave much longer than paternity leave? Why do they contradict freedom by allowing mandated dress codes at work, by demanding taxes, by demand in passports to travel? Nobody is free. There will always be a level of restriction to freedom. This is common sense. Why do they contradict preserving human life by permitting abortion in non-life-threatening situations, preferring autonomy of the mother over the life of the child? Any sensible hierarchy would rank the child's life over the autonomy of a woman. And before the critics claim that it isn't human life, empirically, of course it is. These countries are founded upon naturalistic sciences, and these sciences consider much less than a fetus to be life, such as bacteria. So consistency demands that they recognize these fetuses as human life, since it has the human genome and is more than bacteria genetically. They dehumanize these fetuses in order to justify their slaughter. Know this, these abortion apologists are worse than any terrorist group. Reason being, terrorists kill those who they consider blameworthy, even if to us these supposed blameworthy people are civilians. But the abortion apologists casually kill a human life that is unanimously considered blameless. Even the abortion apologists will confess the innocence of the fetus. So these abortion apologists are worse than terrorists. How fascinating. May Allah condemn them. Ameen. Why do their governments contradict human life by allowing warfare? They permit, fund, and arm their allies to fight, despite it not being the lesser of two evils, and despite it causing more harm than good. Why do they contradict human life with their brutal colonial efforts historically and present day? All this shows that their human rights system that claims to uphold freedom, human life, and equality is broken. It is out of touch with reality and contradicts them at many instances. This falsifies human rights as being a consistent ideology. The secularist now has no leg to stand on since their own ideology opposes the values that are the pillars it is constituted by. They are inconsistent and have no basis criticizing Islam for when it justifiably opposes equality, e.g. gender roles, and preservation of human life, e.g. apostasy law, and freedom, example hijab. The secularists are now forced to admit that some of the times that freedom, equality, and human life are opposed are necessary and or justified, such as in warfare. Who gets to decide when it is justified to oppose equality, human life, and freedom? We say Allah, they say human subjective socio-relativism, which changes and rotates more times than their sexual partners. We accept when Islam opposes equality or freedom or human life preservation due to knowing that Allah is being fair when He does so. When the kuffar do it, we know they are confused, misguided, and unjust, as we saw with the terroristic baby murder from the abortion apologists. That's just one example of injustice out of many. Liberalism is built on the assumption that harm to others is bad, but everything else is permissible. It aims to maximize freedoms that are harmless to others. This is an ineffective way of deriving morality because it is not beneficial for a human community. It allows for harms to befall individuals to themselves, provided that it doesn't harm others. So governments like this don't have your best interest at heart if they facilitate your downfall by allowing harm to you, meaning they don't care about what's best for the society, since the society is constituted by the individuals. They allow drugs, alcohol, gambling, interest, etc. This is not befitting for a community intending goodness and development. Harming the self alone is equally as destructive as harming someone else, since either way it's one individual in the community being damaged. The objective of an ideology is to improve human civilization, not degenerate it like liberalism does by enabling harmful desires. And most human desires are destructive because humans are susceptible to doing what's easy, and most things that are easy are harmful. Liberalism placates this human infirmity and therefore does not better human life. There are too many harms to others in the blind spot of liberalism that are allowed, which shows the ideology is inconsistent to human reality. They allow homosexuality, which harms others via damaged anal sphincters and STDs disproportionately. They allow abortion, harm explained earlier. They allow and partake in warfare. They allow and encourage promiscuity, harms explained earlier. The ideology's principles are therefore not serving human needs since it is contradicted so many times. So basing morality on harm isn't appropriate for society and is to be rejected by both us and them. And if they can do harm to others, then their criticism of Muslims for having instances where harm is allowed is delegitimized. Who gets to decide when it is justified to do harm? We say Allah, they say human subjective socio-relativism, which changes and rotates more times than their gay sexual partners. To conclude, Islam is a fully laden ideology. It is consistent and fair. We accept it by faith due to Allah proving His existence supernaturally. We can prove that Islam is fair and consistent consequentially, as has been done throughout the video. When dealing with the liars, step 1, highlight the fact that every ideology at some point in time opposes freedom, preservation of life, body autonomy, equality, and the lot, regardless of if it's justified or not. So any ideology that tries to uphold any of them as an absolute, then said ideology is out of touch with reality, as this presentation has shown, and they are liars. Step 2, highlight that since every ideology opposes equality, freedom, preserving human life and autonomy at some point in time, it needs to be asked who gets to determine when it is fair and appropriate to oppose any of them. Currently, kuffar do so arbitrarily, and this is not logically or rationally consistent. Step 3, explain that they are inadequately deriving good and bad. We are deriving good and bad via Allah, who is all just, who is the source of objective morality, who we have already proven the existence of. Allah grants freedom and autonomy proportional with what's beneficial for humanity, not in excess as we see from the kuffar, to the point where it collapses the legitimacy of their ideology and causes corruption in the land, as has been demonstrated. Such is the result of straying from divine guidance. Men and women are equal in value, proven by their equal chance of getting to paradise or hell, but different in role. And that's all, folks. I've put evidences in the description below.